Yeah, so it's a working title in progress. We haven't really got like a proper title yet, but we ended up choosing punk as our study in conflict, specifically kind of the 80s. And let's move on. Yeah. So we thought it's by definition, it's kind of intrinsically a conflict-driven kind of idea, just the idea of being anti-establishment and the shock factor of it. So we thought we'd enjoy exploring that, especially since we could both look at the history, and then because it's so rooted in fashion and aesthetics, it would be really a great choice for Vee as well, to go for the fashion kind of side. Let's move on. Vee, do you want to take this part?
Yeah, so we kind of wanted to do like a really brief timeline of how the project developed and then kind of go into more specifics. But basically, well, like literally in the first workshop, we were kind of sitting and talking about like, well, what are some conflicts in fashion? What are some conflicts in history? And we kind of landed on the punk subculture before we landed on any sort of political conflict. So we both agreed, well, we like this, like, let's dive deeper into this and go from there. And so we used a lot of the library to like look at punk inspiration, so where artists come from, imagery, like visualizing the aesthetic as a whole. And then from there, we chose our conflict. So we kind of like asked ourselves questions along the way. So for example, in conflict, like we wanted to find something that was happening during the punk movement. And every time we opened up like a new branch of research, we kind of asked ourselves those questions. Then we decided on our physical product, which meant going into construction, and eventually our documentation, which we're looking at doing a photo shoot and a little short video that should be done by the end of next week. Yeah. So this is Vivienne Westwood. She's one of the biggest designers in punk. And she's passed away now, but while she was alive, and I mean, her legacy continues, she was one of the most prolific punk designers at the time of the movement. So we looked at her designs and also her accomplices, like Malcolm McLaren, Jamie Reed, like that kind of area of artists, stylists, and also the bands that came from those people. Like Malcolm McLaren dated Vivienne Westwood, and Malcolm McLaren was actually the one who put together Sex Pistols along with quite a few other punk bands. He was kind of like the Simon Cowell of punk. But yeah, so we looked into all of these artists and musicians and kind of got like a much more detailed idea of what we were looking for in terms of aesthetics, like looking at red plaid, looking at distressed materials, how like nothing is absolutely fine-tuned, which I think is really good, like for especially because we're working with someone who knows how to construct but also a beginner. It was just a really great way to meld the styles.
Fashion, so we kind of keep it like together. So then through as we were looking at that, we had a deep look at the punk aesthetic, so what kind of set them apart and how it evolved. So just we looked at the aggression of it, like how violent it was, and what I found interesting was like how it took aspects of fashion that had been kind of around for 30-ish years, 20, 30 years, and aspects of fashion that were like kind of central core to the generation that would have been their parents' generation, and they kind of like messed it up and made it like a statement of rebellion by like piercings and like rips and studs and stuff. And then we also found like there was definitely a central theme of like sexuality and masochism in it. We were talking about Vivienne Westwood and the history, and like one of her first boutiques was literally called Sex, and they made like bondage clothes. So yeah, it was a very central theme, which we've been trying to like keep in with our product. We've got like sorry, I've forgotten what it's called. What's the plaid things that are going over the holes?
The kilts.
No, like this, we've got straps and stuff.
Oh, yeah, they're like bondage straps.
So moving on. This is the kind of product because we were delving into the subcultures of punk, this is kind of the idea we landed on, which is the crust punk / patch pants. It's kind of like it's a central fashion item in one of the subcultures of punk. And I think one of the great things about it is how it really kind of embodies the like kind of DIY, do it yourself and like aspect of punk culture, because we've noticed this. We were talking the other day about, because we've been given a budget for this, but we haven't really used that much of it. It's been very cheap, and it's been very like very personal, because we've been using scraps and like just stuff that we've picked up, which has been great. And there's really no rules. There's no kind of like, I mean, there is an aesthetic, but the aesthetic is just kind of throw on whatever is personal to you, whatever you feel like putting on. So we're hoping the finished product will be like kind of, even though we've got a chosen conflict, we're hoping it will be quite personal to us as well. All right. Okay, so we'll go to our conflict thing.
Yeah, so we chose Cornish mining, and we thought it might be interesting to do because basically the peak of the punk movement and subculture, although it's still very prevalent today, like when it was a very, very big thing and BBC wasn't letting like Sex Pistols play their music on radio, was in the beginning of the 1980s, which is the same time as all of the mining protests across England. And so basically we decided, well, we could look at all of them across England, or we could do something a little bit more personal and look at the Cornish mines, which was really interesting because we were able to look in the archives, and that's actually how we got these two newspaper clippings. There was the set of like 4 books that this man had put together when he was trying to be a stockbroker, and his thing was going to be tin mining. He just got into it at the wrong time. And so it's like this over the course of from like 1983, 84, all the way till like 1990. It's like this steady deterioration of mining shown through all of these newspaper clippings, which we just thought, one, is really interesting, but two, also really powerful imagery. And so we thought that might be interesting as an aspect to use in our trousers.
This is kind of the process that we've been going through with our product. So our primary research, I did an interview last Thursday, I think, with a local punk band called Enabling Behavior, which is really great. It was really great to like hear what the kind of local punk scene, their concerns and their ideas about what it is to be punk, and how it was really great because they kind of just it wasn't that they didn't like the label of being punk, but they were just saying like it's just it's such a broad kind of thing, you can't fit it into a box really. Yeah, and then textiles.
Yeah, so based on all the imagery we got from the archive from the newspaper clippings, they were able to let us scan all the prints in, and I basically put it onto a Photoshop document, made it into grayscale and like little newspaper halftone dots so that it could be screen printed onto fabric. So me and Ed collected a couple things from a charity shop, so some khakis from a charity shop, and then went through a bunch of the textile bins because there's a bunch of scraps there, and then I had my own personal hoard of fabrics. And so we basically laid them all out in like a collage pattern and printed like this long set of all the newspaper clippings several times. And those are what we used as the patches on the patch pants. As well as when we were in the studios, we were able to use all of the sewing machines. All of my tutors were there, so they were very very helpful, very hands-on, which was amazing. And construction wise, like I was able to talk to Peter, like me and Ed did the eyelets by hand, like with our metalworks in the hot works room. And then, we were able to talk to Freya about freehand sewing, which was really amazing. And so parts of the pants are a bit of like handwork, which Ed has been learning how to do, which has been really amazing. Just like learning how to do embroidery and learning how to do stitches. And then the other half of it is done on the industrial machines, which is amazing to have that kind of resource. And as we mentioned before, we were looking at the archives.
So this is kind of a few images of our products so far. We have some videos as well of the process, but I think it would have taken ages to get them on the slideshow, unfortunately. But yeah, so it's just in the process of right now just stitching up the patches, putting them on. And Vee was saying we could work on like distressing them. She's kind of like throwing them against rocks and stuff just to make them a bit more disheveled, which would be fun. So and also, do you want to talk about the t-shirt idea as well?
Yeah, so basically, me and Ed agreed that having trousers is amazing, but it wouldn't be as amazing if we couldn't showcase it as a full outfit. So one of the ideas we were kind of brainstorming is like, well, like we were looking at all these images of punk concerts and like even punk concerts in like Cornwall, like in Penzance, and finding more out about that and watching all these videos. And we kind of thought that it might be interesting to make a band tee, but kind of like an 80s punk band tee with political propaganda on it. So if you can look in the top right corner, you can see basically we did a collage together. So I took an image of a protest with miners at the bottom and policemen at the top and overlaid it with a picture of Margaret Thatcher's face, and made it a transparent layer. Printed that out, then decided, okay, Ed, you do a bit of like the name of the band, so the Excavators in marker, ripped that a little bit, and then got another mining protest at the bottom. Then I scanned that into a printer, sent it over to the screen printing area, and was able to print it onto an old bed sheet. And so it's gonna be kind of like Dobby's pillowcase outfit from Harry Potter. So it's gonna be like tied at the shoulders and at the hips and then open on the side. And I don't know about Ed, but I'm pretty chuffed with it.
I really like. I wasn't unfortunately there for when Vee scanned it, but I really love how it turned out. And what's really cool about the way she did it was we were looking at some of the fanzines from punk. We were looking at some of the original zines from like the 80s or even mid 70s, and she used pretty much the same technique as they would have used to print out their posters and like the graphics for the magazines, which was really cool. It's got that kind of authentic effect, which I love.